Welcome to another edition of Getting to Know Your Indiana Neighbor. And I guess you could call this Inspirational Week for us because many of you have seen the interview that we did with Landon Matthias and what an inspiration he's been. And our guest today actually had him in class.
In fifth
right?
grade, yeah.
Fifth grade. And Angie Brookshire, I don't need to tell those of you who have had her in class and those who teach with her, total inspiration to the community, to the teaching profession. Angie Brookshire, welcome to Getting to Know Your Indiana Neighbor.
Thank you, Greg.
So let's start. I tell people sometimes this is your life. Now are you old enough to remember that show?
I don't remember that show,
Right.
but I do know the name of the show.
Okay.
So.
Well, it was basically it was a TV show, and they found a star normally, and they surprised them with all kinds of family members who's not going to show up, but they kind of go through the
Mark is not going to come.
Mark's
through the
not
door.
going to come through.
Good news.
That I know of. But let's start with your upbringing, because even though she's our Indiana neighbor, she's another one of those that is not a native Hoosier, right?
No, I was actually born in Michigan.
You were born in Michigan.
Yeah, I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
All right.
Mark and I both were.
All right. So, but you moved to Missouri at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were born in Michigan to Dr. Sutton, Julie Sutton. I mean, come on. Cream of the crop.
Pretty
Right.
good people.
Pretty good people. And I'm sure we can talk later on about this, but I'm sure the challenges of being a daughter of a small town doctor is there. But tell me a little bit about your upbringing. You said you lived in Michigan for how long?
Just a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. I mean, I think pretty soon after Mark was born, my dad accepted the job. He was the head of the special chemistry department at the hospital in Kirksville, Missouri. Because my parents met in med tech school. That's where they met, in Elkhart, Indiana. And my dad was just a lab tech at that time, and so was my mom. But then she stayed home to take care of us, and he worked, and he ran that department, which was a pretty intensive job. And then, doctors, Larry, you should be a doctor. You really have you have a mind for this. You should do it. But, my dad kind of, horsed around in high school a little bit. And, he really didn't see himself as that. But then I think as he got older, which you understand, back then my parents got married when they were 19 and 20 years old. They didn't really, and my mom and dad had 3 kids when my dad decided to go to medical school.
No kidding.
No kidding. Yeah. So, myself, Mark, and Brian were born. And then he decided that he wanted to be a doctor. So he decided to go to medical school. And a month later, they found out that they were going to have another one, Stephanie, my youngest sister.
I think of myself, and if I say, I might want to be a doctor, I don't think it would work out.
Yeah.
But that's what he did.
He did. He wanted to do it. My mom supported him. She babysat. She stayed home with us. My mom didn't even have her driver's license. I mean, she just wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And she went back to work in the lab at the hospital, KOH. And he started med school. And he worked on the weekends in the lab. And she worked 60-hour weeks and took care of us. And
Now, are your mom and dad both from Michigan?
no, my mom was actually born in northern Indiana, in Goodland, Indiana.
Goodland, Indiana?
Yeah, it's near Lafayette.
And your dad?
My dad was born in North Branch. Well, actually, he was born in Lapeer, Michigan, and he was there till he was 16, I think. And then his dad was a dairy farmer, and they bought another farm in North Branch, which is then where he finished out high school.
Do you have one of those annoying University of Michigan license plates like Mark and Andrew? No.
No. Although I did take a picture with the Wolverine when we were up there with Cameron. I think I might frame it and give it to Mark for Christmas because I know he likes having pictures of me.
Yeah.
So,
So you were how old when you moved to Missouri?
I would say 3.
3, okay, because
3.
your father accepted a role there in
At the
Kirksville,
hospital,
Missouri.
yeah.
Okay.
And then he went to med school in Kirksville also because there was a university. I mean, it's a pretty big place. I mean, it's got a university, it's got a medical school, a couple hospitals.
Near St. Louis, isn't it?
No, it's in northeastern Missouri.
Okay. All right.
So, so he did med school there, residency at St. Louis.
Okay.
So he was gone a lot.
So you don't remember anything about Michigan?
No, I don't really have any memories of that at all.
Okay, until nowadays. You spend a lot of time.
Yeah,
and
now.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that
for
later,
sure.
yeah.
Some challenges. But, so how old were you in Missouri. I mean, what the length of time when you're in Missouri?
I was there till I finished 6th grade
Okay.
in Lagodi.
Okay.
I mean, in Missouri, and then I moved here for my 7th grade year. So this building actually is where I started.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Junior high.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We're in the classroom.
Yeah.
That I mean, she has a better chair than this. We just
Yeah,
set it
it's over
aside.
there. Yeah.
But it's right here, and this is her classroom at the middle school now.
Yeah.
Lagodi Middle School.
I'm back to 5th grade.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so 6th grade, you move here. Was it a difficult move for you? I mean, that's a pretty impressionable time.
Well, if I'm going to be honest, yeah, it was pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
I went from, like I said, it was a big city. I mean, we lived in a city, and it is not a lie. We drove into Lagodi following a horse and buggy, and I wasn't liking my parents too much at that point. No.
Yeah. Think about that. When you were in 6th grade,
that was and then you hit the junior high years, which are like so much anyway. And then I didn't really know anybody, and I think there was a preconceived notion about maybe who I was, because I was moving to town as Dr. Sutton's daughter, so people thought I was a doctor's daughter. What they didn't realize is that I had been on free lunches, and we didn't have any money. I mean, in 6th grade, I had 2 pairs of pants and 4 shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, I got my first pair of Nike tennis shoes in 7th grade. But I think people perceived that maybe I'd had a life of privilege because I was the doctor's daughter.
Yeah, but he was still young, and,
Yeah,
and
they
he still
were-
had to earn that.
They've earned every cent that they have on their own.
Well, what was the? And by the way, I hope to do one of these with Dr. Sutton. So, but just
Yeah.
in case I don't, maybe you can answer some of those questions. What was the reason he moved to Lagodi? Obviously, there was the doctor position, but how did that come up?
Well,
He had never heard of Lagodi, Indiana.
no. I mean, he had taken out a loan when he was in med school, and it was like a service loan. Like once you became a doctor, then I think he had the loan for 2 years. That in order to like pay back the loan, you had to go to a doctor shortage area. And so there were several Indian reservations that qualified that we could have moved to, which I'm sure was a hard decision for my dad, because he's like a history nut, and he oh my gosh, collected arrowheads in Michigan when he was growing up. But my family, my mom's family, she was born in northern Indiana. They were here in Indiana, and so it just seemed like a better choice for our family. So we ended up in Lagodi after Dr. Lett. Dad took over Dr. Lett's practice.
Dr. Lett delivered me. And,
Oh, wow.
and many of the people
that are maybe watching.
Maybe, yeah, he did. But I remember, and I don't even know if you know this, but our family was one of the first ones actually that your dad came to visit. I don't know why. I'm not talking medically. I'm talking about just he knew my dad for some reason. Actually, Mark and my brother Chris obviously became
Same
very
class.
good friends. Yeah. And so I remember them coming down, and I remember them being on that couch and talking. And I'll tell you how, because I loved St. Louis at the time. I thought I was going to live in St. Louis.
Oh.
And, of course, he had a connection to St. Louis.
Yeah.
But, we were one of the first families, I think, that kind of welcomed them in. And
oh, for sure. And, I remember my grandpa had surgery not long after we moved here. And I actually remember Mom and Dad dropping me off at your parents' house, and Sammy took me to school. And I remember thinking it was so cool because I got to be up in her room. And your mom was just...
Yeah.
And your dad too, but your mom was just such a kind, welcoming soul. I mean, you just felt like you knew her, And even though I was a young teenage girl, she was very kind to me, and they helped out with us actually for a couple of days. Well,
very good. Did not know that.
Right there. Yeah.
So what was 10-year-old Angie like? Did you know what you wanted to be? What was your dream at 10 years old? Do you remember thinking anything in particular?
I always wanted to be a teacher.
Always wanted to be a teacher.
I did.
Not a doctor.
No. I do have a medical mind, though. I mean, like, Jamie Wildman will tell you I am her doctor. But it's kind of like you say, what's it like growing up in a small town as a doctor's daughter? Like, people will ask me questions, and sometimes I actually know answers because I've heard it on the phone. I've heard my mom and dad talking about it. Those were normal conversations in my house,
So, Angie, I've got this tweak. What do you think?
What do you think it is? In fact, Audra McAtee, there was something going on in her family a few months ago, and I'm like, are you sure it's not this? Maybe you should get it checked out, and by golly, it was. So, anyway, Dad, shout out to you. So, but no, I was always really responsible. Like, I think because my parents both had to work so much when I was only in 3rd grade. I mean, when my sister was a baby, I was babysitting on Saturdays, and I was in 3rd grade, and Mark was in second grade, and
Yeah.
and then Brian, he was probably 2, and Stephanie was a baby, and it was just expected of you back then. I mean, it was a different world, and so I always had a love of kids, and I always had a sense of responsibility, and I just knew I wanted to teach.
I'm guessing at a young age, Mark didn't share that same responsibility. I can picture you two because I know how Sam and Chris were.
Yeah.
I can picture you two going at it.
Oh, he would call me Sergeant Sutton on Saturday mornings because once we moved to Lagodi, Mom and Dad would both be working at the office, and I would be in charge at home. I'd be like laundry, and then, Sergeant Sutton, what else you want? But we were also very close too. We were only 18 months apart.
Yeah, I
so,
know. Did you ever have to call Mom at work and say, Mom?
Yeah, but it gets to a point where no, you just don't call anymore. Yeah. And with Mark, he would eventually do it. He just didn't do it when you would ask him to.
Yeah.
But
who were your best friends in junior high? So when you moved here, before you answer that, I just want to, was it difficult for you to assimilate into a group, or knowing your personality, it must have been pretty easy, right?
Actually, no. It was, you couldn't pay me $10 million to be in 7th grade again.
No kidding.
And that's the God's truth.
It was that rough.
Yeah, in fact, even before when you'd asked me to do this interview, not until this moment did I know whether or not I wanted to talk about it or not.
Yeah.
But it has shaped a lot of who I am in my teaching career. Mm-hmm. So I believe that it happened to me for a reason. Yeah. But it was a difficult transition, partly because of what I said about people thinking that I was the doctor's daughter. Okay. And so there was like a certain group, of girls that didn't really think that they liked me being here, and made my life really hard.
Wow. Because I remember you as being quite a popular young lady.
Well, I hate the word popular, but
I do too, but that's
I would say, but by 8th grade that had changed, and then I ran for student council, and high school was different for me, because I was able to get a different group of friends. A lot of my friends were a year younger than I was. They were in Chris and Mark's class. Yeah. But as far as like the girls who are now women that I will be like forever grateful to, that were just so kind to me and did take me in, would I gotta hope, don't want to leave anybody out, but Michael, your sister-in-law, Terry Ressler, Leslie Doyle.
You're talking about good people here.
I'm talking about kind, good.
Yeah.
Missy Irvin. Yeah. They just they were good to me, and they were kind to me, and it was hard for me also because at the time my locker ended up being next to a special needs girl who was in my grade. But back then, special needs kids weren't integrated. Right. But the life skills room was in this hallway, and so at the time the special needs teacher, Diane Gill, had asked me if I would open this girl's locker for her every day because she couldn't do it. Yeah. And at the time I said yes. I didn't realize it was going to open me up as a target for people to make fun of me, ridicule me for
just for befriending. Yeah.
Someone that they would refer to as a retard, which is
But little did you know.
Little did I know that going through that time in my life was going to put a teacher in my life that changed my life, and B, make me be more aware of kids that feel left out and what that actually does feel like to not want to go to school, to fake having a stomach ache because you don't feel like you belong or that someone cares. I want them to know I care. Just last week I had a kid say, "But you're my only friend here," and it was such a compliment to me because I thought, "But at least you know that I'm your friend." Yeah. And
so who was that teacher?
It's hard for me to say. It's hard to tell the story. Her kids know, but it was Sandy Reeves.
Mrs. Reeves. Yeah.
Sandy Reeves changed my life. Like
I had her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was pretty dynamic.
She was bigger than life. Yeah. She was just like, she poured love into everybody. Even if you just think about the foster kids that she took in and her own kids, but I really did have a rough time. My first 9 weeks at Lagodi, I was failing my classes because I didn't want to come to school because it was bad and wasn't doing my work, and I was just going through the motions. And she called me out in the hall one day, as Sandy Reeves would, and she just I'm 51 years old, but I could walk you down this hall and show you right where I'm
Yeah, it's
standing.
this very hallway.
I could show you, I could tell you what I was wearing that day.
Yeah.
And she just looked at me and she said, when are you going to stop letting other people dictate who you are capable of being?
Wow. Wow. So she saw that.
She saw that in me. And
Yeah.
I remember just thinking, peripherally, she was on the outside seeing what was happening to me in the hallways and what was going on. And she'd seen what my grades were in Missouri, and now I'm failing.
Yeah.
And she goes, grades, we've got 1 week. 1 week till I have to give you grades. And, you know, at the time, I wasn't a teacher, so I don't think I appreciated the effort she put into me, because she made copies of every assignment that we had done for that 9 weeks and written down everything we had done and handed it to me. And she said, you give this back to me, and these are the grades I'll give you.
This was 7th grade?
7th grade.
How did you respond to that? Did you think that, as a 7th grader, I would probably think, not that she's trying to help me, but that this is a calling out. But how did you take that?
No, I took it as love. I took it as she genuinely cared about me and my success and what I was going through, and she was giving me a chance. And that shaped who I became as a teacher, because I see that in kids. You know, I've always been blessed. God has blessed me with the ability to see through anger in kids, you know, because I don't believe in bad kids. I believe that bad things happen to kids that make them angry, but I don't believe in bad kids. And I believe that she saw that in me that day, that I wasn't a kid that didn't care. I just was hurting so much I didn't know how to fix it.
I'm guessing you've had the chance to tell her this prior to this?
Well, before she passed away, I was able to tell her that. But every single year on Facebook, when there's that little thing that says, who was the teacher that impacted you the most? I always tag Amy, and I always talk about her mom, because I did do all that work. And now that I'm a teacher, I totally appreciate it, because I'm sure she was sitting there on Thursday night grading all those 9,000 pages that she made copies of. And then back then, going into the calculator and putting them all in and dividing them out, averaging them, and getting my grades. And it changed me because she cared.
Have you, as a teacher, seen a little Angie Sutton and tried to do the same thing? Yeah.
Lots of times.
Yeah.
And more times than I wish, because that's sad. Because you see sadness in children, that's not anything that you want to deal with. You know?
What I'm finding from the teachers that I've talked to that really make an impact, the Ann Ackermans and such, they're not just teachers. I mean, they try to understand the kids and their problems and what's going on with them, and not only try to understand, but then they try to help, you know. And I don't know about today, but not every teacher did that, at least when I went to school. They didn't take that interest.
Yeah, it wasn't, not really for me either. I mean, through elementary school, you know, when I was in Missouri, I didn't really have that. But Mrs. Reeves did. And times just have changed a lot, you know, even just over the last 5 to 7 years. And there's a lot more kids that need just a lot more love. And you know, anybody that wants to be a teacher, you know, you have to build relationships. It is the number one thing. I don't care if you have the nicest Google Slides presentation on compare and contrast, or you have the best, most beautiful room, or if you're this. If you don't know where these kids are coming from, then you can't teach them. And so that has become the big thing that I've seen in my whole career. You have to love them first, because if you don't, and it doesn't mean you can't get on them, because, I'm sure there's quite a few out here who'll be like, oh, I remember when she yelled at me in the hallway.
Well, there will be somebody that, they won't comment, but
most of them, I think, honestly, truthfully would say they probably deserved it, and that they knew that I cared. And but if you don't build the I care about you first, then if you get on them, they're not going to hear you. But if they know you care and you get on them, then they're kind of like, well, if she's telling me this, maybe I better listen.
Yeah. How were your high school years?
Great.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I loved high school. Yeah, I had a lot of good friends. I loved basketball. It was great then. Those were the times that wasn't class basketball. We go to Washington and butcher, open the door, let those lions
Yeah.
on the floor,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just fun times. We went to semi-state. That's back to Jeff Doyle and
Oh yeah.
all those
Oh
eras.
yeah. 1990.
Yeah. So fun times. I had good friends then. Loved my teachers. I mean, Ann Ozer, wonderful. Steve Fisher, his history. I'm still a history nerd today, Mr. Fisher. There you go. I have a minor in social studies. Mr. Johnson. I mean, what can you say about him? I still can't call you Greg. I'm sorry.
I can't call any of them.
It's,
Randy Mills, Mr. Mills to me.
I'm Terry Hassler. He's like the worst.
Yeah.
He's like, it's Terry.
Yeah.
I know.
Miss A, you think I'm going
Miss
to call
A.
her Ann?
Oh my God,
No way.
no.
No way.
No.
But you're right. Even Greg Johnson, as much as we have in common, and I told him,
Oh yeah.
it's Mr. Johnson. I'm sorry. Yeah.
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 And it's still yeah. When I look back, I got a great education at Lagodi. I mean, when I went to college, I was ready.
Yeah. So
and I
nothing
appreciate
swayed
that.
you away from that passion that you had for the potential for teaching in high school.
No,
didn't change
actually,
your mind.
nope. Jumped in to get at teaching with Susan Eiler, who I adore. She was my mentor actually when I got my first teaching job at Lagodi, 1995. She was my mentor. She worked in the resource room there, and I really saw the impact that she made. And no, I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher, I think, in my younger years, like a lot of young kids do, because you think it's fun to grade papers and, set your dolls all up and do all that. Yeah. But then as I got older and I saw the impacts that the Mrs. Reeveses and the Mrs. Eilers and the Mrs. Ozers, made on me, I knew that was something that I wanted to do.
Where'd you go to college?
USI.
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 Okay.
Yep.
And then, so tell me about finding a teaching job.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, nowadays, we're begging for teachers. But back then it was hard.
Yeah.
Nobody was retiring. So actually, my first year out of college, I didn't have a teaching job because there weren't any available, and I couldn't sub because I needed consistent income. So I actually worked with they're called Four Rivers now, but it was Red Door Industries, and I was a early interventionist is basically what it was called. I would go into homes with families who had kids with special needs and work with those kids and then help those parents find resources and things that they needed. Albeit at the time I didn't have any children of my own, so I'm working with these babies.
Yeah, but it's amazing how the special needs comes up, and you were there for those special needs. Again, as we will get into here very, very shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first year you couldn't find a job.
Yep.
Were you looking just for this area?
Yeah, I wanted to be around here. Yeah, my family's very important to me. And I think because we moved to Lagodi, we really didn't have family here. I mean, it was literally just us.
Where'd you live when you moved here?
Pine Tree Road.
Oh.
I don't know if you know where that's at.
Well, I do.
Right out by the lake.
And wasn't anything out there then, was it?
No, it was a big A-frame cabin, and we had to rent it while we were building our house in Belgrade.
Okay.
And so Dad would drop us off here on his way to the hospital in the mornings, and because I don't think the bus even went out there. I don't remember, but I just
probably not.
No, I don't think it did. And then we started riding the bus once we moved to Belgrade.
Yeah.
Yay, the bus. Sorry, Mr. Walton, but
So the process of finding a job here, how did that happen?
that was well, actually, Laura Mattingly gave me my first chance. Her sister Leah, I should have mentioned her and the friends earlier. Leah
Parsons.
Leah Parsons, yes, she was one of my friends early on. We lived together at college for a couple of years, and a PE job, elementary PE, opened up. Mike Wagner originally was doing PE at the little school and then the middle school, which was St. John's.
So Mike needed help.
Mike, yes, those little ones. I'm pretty sure they were eating him alive. Sorry, Mike.
You're the young guy too.
Yeah. So they hired me as a half-time teacher teaching PE, and the other half of the day I was in Wanda Whooper's room. I don't know if you remember her.
I remember. Yep.
Yeah, and I was in her first grade classroom as her teaching assistant, and that was my very first job.
But what was your concentration in as far as teaching?
Just elementary ed.
Just elementary
Just
ed.
L.Ed.
So whatever's there.
Whatever was there,
Yeah.
I was going to take.
Yeah.
Except
Okay.
for I didn't get a kindergarten endorsement because God knew that was not
Yeah.
my spot.
Yeah, that's, he knew what he's doing.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did.
What grade did you teach? I'm sorry, for PE.
PE was K through 3 at the time. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine you trying to corral
Oh,
all
Lord.
of these kids,
Oh,
chasing
Lord.
the balls and
And
everything
I was
else.
so naive.
You got any video?
No, thank
No.
God there was no social media back then. But yeah, I mean,
Who are some of your students? I mean,
that I remember from back then.
3, 4, 5, anybody?
Oh my gosh.
This was your first year.
My very first year.
So that picture.
Well, that picture that
Okay.
you have of me was my very first classroom job.
Okay, so you didn't have a
Yes.
classroom, you were PE.
No, I actually did PE,
Okay.
and I was Wanda's aide. And then the next year, I had, that was the year that I was AAA, is what I called myself, because I was Lana Walton's aide. I did attendance at the junior high, and then I went back over and taught art for kindergarten and first grade. Art.
Did you know anything about art?
No. In fact, there's a secret that's going to come out today. They would say, Mrs. Callison, would you please draw me a truck? I want to see your truck.
Oh.
You know what? You don't want to. I want to see what you can do for a truck. And the kids today still laugh. I mean,
Yeah, I like that.
God did not give me the ability to draw.
But he gave you the wisdom to deal with it.
The wisdom to deal with it. Like, I can remember years ago, we would, in third grade, we would always draw a story out first before we wrote it at the beginning of school. And I was writing about a trip to Florida, drawing a picture about a trip to Florida, and Landon Bell. I don't know if you remember Landon Bell, but
oh, sure.
he was in third grade then, and I'm writing the story, and he raises his hand. I'm like, what? And he's like, but where's the turtle? You didn't write about the turtle in your story. And I'm like, turtle? What is he talking about? And I look at the thing, and I said, Landon, where is the turtle? He pointed to it. It was the minivan that I had drawn.
Oh, the minivan you had drawn.
I had drawn a minivan, and he thought it was a turtle. So the art skills weren't there.
Yeah.
And then I finally got a classroom job. Rich Luker left, and I can't remember what happened, but I got a fourth grade job.
What year was this?
That would have been, 90. We'd have to look at the picture.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's been 27 years. But my first class, I remember I had Katie Warner, Todd Baker, Jackson Hembry.
It's the picture we're looking at now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
And there's just so many. Thomas Mullins, can't forget him. Cody Smith, so sweet. His son Lucas is now over there. There were so many. Cheryl Flash, I think was her last name. Jessica Higdon taught her son Ezra in first grade.
Yeah, so you're already into the generations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm teaching.
Are you gonna be teaching till there's grandkids that you taught?
Oh, Carol Strange. There you are, Carol.
You taught Carol?
I did not teach Carol, but I taught her grandkids.
Oh, I was gonna say.
No, but I've not taught grandkids. Actually, I'm not sure Carol has admitted it or not, but I think I'm officially a part of their family because I taught Trista, Kayana, and then Kayana's husband Wade, and now I've taught 2 of Carol's granddaughters.
Because Carol is older
She's
than
older
you.
than me.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, Carol is older than I am.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yes.
But you've taught her children and
her grandchildren.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're going to have sooner or later.
Yes.
Yeah. The grandkids of the kids that you actually taught.
They're coming.
So they're coming.
Yeah, they're coming.
Okay. So what were the challenges that first couple of years of teaching? Did you feel comfortable? Did you ever at one time think, what I get myself into?
The only time I can say that I had that doubt was the night before my student teaching, actually, not my teaching career. Mm-hmm. There have been times when, I've taught lessons that failed, and I just thought, oh, good God, Yeah. But I was really lucky at the beginning of my career because I had Kay Ackerman, Cleta Kavanaugh, and Lana Walton. And they welcomed me in with open arms, not just as like the young rookie who doesn't know anything. They helped me a lot, and they each brought something to my career. Like, I like to teach writing. I like to teach writing because Kay Ackerman helped me learn how to teach writing. I would teach a lesson and be at the end of the day in her room with all these papers and go, I taught them this. Look what they gave me. It's awful. And well, honey, you're trying to teach him too many things at once.
Yeah.
And Cleta was the queen of all organization, so she helped me not be grading papers all weekend long. And then Lana was just,
Yeah.
she was a lot.
Were you Mrs. Sutton then or Mrs. Callison?
I was Mrs. Callison then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what point, your first child was Luke?
Cameron.
Your first was Cameron.
Cameron was.
So you said 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cameron came into the world.
And so you've just been teaching a couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we get serious for just a minute.
Okay.
Everybody knows Cameron around here. They love Cameron, but I'm not sure everybody knows the story. I don't.
Right.
So if you're comfortable, maybe fill us in on Cameron's situation from the start.
Oh, from the start.
And if you can't, you just let me know.
No, it's okay. It's I don't even really know how to put it into words. I think because of his health problems lately, I've really reflected a lot more on what his life has been like. But when I actually went into labor with Cameron when I was only 24 weeks pregnant, and so I spent the next 6 weeks at St. Mary's Hospital in Evansville. My mom, Scott, and myself basically for 6 weeks trying to keep Cameron from being born. And it got to the point where I'd gotten very sick. So he needed to come into the world, and I'd grown very close to all those nurses and stuff. In fact, it was a very cool thing about Cameron is that when he was born, the nurses from both shifts were in the room when he was born because they were invested in him also. And he was born at 7:50 p.m. So it was like the shift change at 7, and they were all coaching him into the world. And I remember my doctor saying, now he's early, so he's not going to cry. And once he's out, he's going to go to the NICU. And once we get him stabilized, you'll be able to see him. And so I'd like, okay. And that little booger came out just screaming his lungs out. Okay. I mean, he was just crying. And I got to actually hold him for a few seconds. And then he was taken to the NICU. And that time was kind of a whirlwind because we were told that Cameron had a chromosomal condition. It was called Miller-Dieker syndrome, and that he would be severely, profoundly retarded.
When did they tell you this?
This was about 3 days after he was born.
Okay.
Severely, profoundly retarded, would never speak at all, wheelchair bound, possibly live till he was 4. And the 4 years that he would live would be very low quality of life. And they had considered that we turn off his ventilator because, it would almost be a kindness thing to him that he wouldn't have to live a life like that. However, they told us all of that before they got his chromosome results back, and he did not have Miller-Dieker syndrome, but he did not have chromosomes that were correct either. At the time, he was unique. There was no one in the world that had his chromosomes, and today in 2022, there is still no one who has the chromosomes that Cameron has. So his genes are in a bank in Germany, and they are continually being compared to people throughout the world to try to find someone who is similar to him, because right now, like everything with Cameron, they document because he is the only one. So it could be a guide for people in the future who might have a child born like Cameron to know, when they start to go through puberty, put them in a back brace because their scoliosis is going to go from 0 to full-blown spinal fusion in 3 months. And he has a lot of health problems, but he's always been a fighter. I mean, and he's always been happy, even though I don't know that he's ever felt good a day in his life. But, he got out of that. He came home 5 weeks later on a feeding tube and a SAT monitor, an apnea monitor, and
tiny.
He was 315 when he was born. 521 when he left the hospital. 512 when he left the hospital on the 21st of October, and tube feedings. I had to do tube. I had to be certified to give him a tube feeding before we left the hospital. And I can remember when Dad came over one day at lunch, and I was giving Cameron a tube feeding. So you have to lift the tube as you're doing it. And Cameron was sucking on a pacifier because that he needed that. And my dad was like, it's just that he's burning calories sucking on a pacifier. He can have a bottle. And he picked him up and he carried him into the changing table and he removed the feeding tube, and I just started recording every milliliter that Cameron took. And we went to see our neonatologist, and at that point, we still thought Cameron had what was called lissencephaly, which means smooth brain, and which means, severely, profoundly retarded. The people like to say like the wormy look on your brain. It's called the gyri. Well, when they did a CT scan on Cam when he was 5 days old, his brain was completely smooth. He had none, and so we kind of had settled into the life that this is what we were going to do, and we were going to have the best life we could for as long as we could have him for. And
at that point, though, you still didn't know how long you might have him?
Oh gosh, no.
Did they still consider just a few years?
Yes, didn't even know if we would get that because of the smooth brain, because you need that brain function for all of your, body to survive. And we went for our neonatal checkup, and he was laying on a table, and Dr. Del Rio dropped her chart, and Cameron startled, and she looked at him, and she said he shouldn't have done that. And I was like,
he said that?
Yeah. It was a she. Her name was Maria.
Okay.
She said he has lissencephaly. He has no startle reflex.
He shouldn't have done that.
And he did. And we went for a CT scan. And when we went to the neurologist, he said, "Well, this little guy's got some connections upstairs because here was his brain 3 days after he was born, and here it is now, and he had gyri all over it."
And that just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. No. And I remember thinking naively, like, he had connections upstairs, meaning his brain, like he had brain waves connecting. But Dr. Getting meant God. He meant, God had healed him in some way. And from that point on, it's just kind of been, thing after thing for Cameron. He has a lot of medical issues. And
But he gets to school age. And that becomes a challenge in itself, right?
Yeah.
Is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, because, things change, but unfortunately they've stayed the same, and it bothers me. I mean, when Cameron got to be school age, at that point in time, if your child had special needs, they were supposed to go to school at North Davies. The way the co-op had it set up was that their life skills special needs program, K through 6 was at North Davies, and then 7 through 12 was at Movavi. And so it didn't matter if your brothers and your sisters, your cousins, your friends, your peers were going to this school.
Your mother.
Yeah, your mother is at this school. You were supposed to be bused, basically an hour one way by the time they picked up all the other and back. And I didn't feel comfortable with that, number one, because this was his school. This was his least restrictive environment. I'm teaching in this school. And I had taught a couple of children with special needs because their father had fought for them too, and he knew the law and he knew the way things should be, and he knew that his kids should be able to do this. And so I decided, well, that's what I'm going to have to do to get Cameron to come here. I'm going to do it. And it never got to that point, but it bothered me, And Laura Mattingly was really good about bringing him in, and it was just a blessing all the way through because he bonded with his classmates. I mean, Cameron, one of my pictures I have over there is of Cameron becoming the homecoming king.
Oh yeah,
and that was before. And I think it's beautiful now that people do it all over the place. You see this stuff, but that class did that before that was cool.
Yeah. Well, think about the story you told me earlier. You had the generation. You had people who made fun of you because you were helping a special needs person, to your son being such a positive inspiration to people that they voted him homecoming king, right? I mean,
I can remember being on the playground over at West, and he would he liked to shoot baskets all the time, and the kids would just make a circle all around him and just cheer for him to shoot baskets.
What Angie is his mental state? Does he understand those things?
No, he doesn't. I would say he is about around a 5-year-old if you would go with like his understandings of things. Like he thinks everybody's his friend, so
yeah.
that could be a bad thing for him, but the beauty of Cameron is that he sees the good in everybody. I mean, my son will joke that Cameron would hug Hitler probably. I mean, Cameron just sees the beauty in everybody. And I think that's why people love him, because he just is joy.
Yeah. So when we think and feel sorry, and at times obviously reasons to, and even today, reasons to look at Angie and your family and say, I can't do that. I wouldn't be able to do that. But those times have always been there for you, I know, but we also can't imagine the love, right? I mean, that this kid exudes and that others have for him. It's just a different sort of love, right?
It's pure, I think.
Yeah.
I think that he doesn't know how to hate.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to. Now he knows how to get mad. Like you take his iPad, you change his Judge Judy. You do those things. He's not a saint. And you're right. It's not an easy life, and it's not a life that God would pick for everybody. I don't. That's. Because it's hard on your heart, because he is so pure and good that sometimes your faith just has to take over, because you wonder why God lets that happen. I guess lets him be in pain, lets him hurt, lets someone who's so pure and good have to go through so much every day. Those are the things that hurt me as a mom and that keep me awake, but they also fuel me and push me. And they push me in all parts of my life. They push me in the classroom. They push me, at church. They push me with my other two. I mean, and they have a different perspective on life. I mean, I quite honestly didn't want my daughter to be a teacher.
Is she going to be?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
She's my daughter.
She'll be great.
But I didn't. Our field right now. Profession, it doesn't seem to be getting the respect that it used to. And so and the money, I don't think people truly get how bad the money is. And that I teach with people who have worked here 8 and 9 years and weren't even making $40,000 until the state mandated it last year. And you've been teaching for 9 years, and you're still paying college debt off, and you're like making $40,000 a year.
I mean, really, same with the police profession.
Amen.
I mean,
soldiers.
Those people that you can't do without.
Yeah.
So on Cameron, let's fast forward to today, because you're really at a crossroads, right? And these past couple of weeks, I'll use past couple of weeks. I know for you it's been years, but But tell the people where you are today, because these last 2 weeks for you have been searching for answers, and you're still on that journey, right?
Yeah. Well, Cameron, like I said earlier, his chromosomal issues are with his connective tissue, which everybody needs your connective tissue to hold your body together and stuff. And so he had a spinal fusion in 2016 to fuse his spine from L1 to, I don't know the numbers, but slowly he has deteriorated to where he's got something that's called chin to chest. So the connective tissue around his neck and in his shoulders is deteriorating, so therefore he's bending forward. And so we don't have a choice now. He has to have a cervical spinal fusion. So they are going to have to fuse from the base of his, basically his brainstem base to where his other fusion begins. And so we started in Jasper, and then we went to specialists in Indianapolis, who then said that Cameron's case is what they would call a university level case, because he needs a hospital that's going to have residents and doctors that can watch every little part of his surgery, because it's a dangerous surgery. So this past week we were in Michigan and found out that he'll be having surgery January the 4th, and they will go in through the front of his throat to access the C1, 2, 3, I think. But then they'll have to flip him over to access the back part here. So that's going to be hard on him. And then he also has a heart condition. and they need to elevate his blood pressure to do the surgery, but elevating his blood pressure endangers his heart problem. So, and then I think it's hard too, knowing that he doesn't understand.
Right.
Like he's going to get to the hospital that morning with a smile on his face and
no idea what's coming to him. Yeah.
No idea what he's going to wake up to, And it's a blessing that he doesn't know. He doesn't have to worry. Sorry.
That's true.
That he doesn't have.
Yeah. Well, you know what the power of prayer can do.
That's right. And he needs them.
Because we just found out with Landon what's going on, and he needs them. She needs them. But
yeah,
that's no joking matter. Keep the prayers coming. Now you know the situation. It is very serious, but he'll be fine.
I do believe, and I did say earlier that this, things test your faith throughout your life, and I believe that for everybody. I don't believe it just for me that, my faith gets tested. I think everybody's does.
Right.
And I've walked a journey, of just kind of sometimes just trying to control things too much myself. Like if I can just control this and do this, make this doctor's appointment, get this done. It's the teacher in me too. It is the teacher in me, but I think this is where God has just stopped me and said, stop.
Yeah, you've done as much as you can do.
You've done it. You've walked and I've been there with you and you've held my hand, but you haven't let go of it. And it's to the point now that I've let go. I know that I have to just lay this down at Jesus' feet and know that he loves Cameron more than I do and more than so many of us do, and that he's gonna be there, and I have to believe that. And I do believe that, sincerely I do. Good, even no matter what the outcome. Yeah. I do have peace in my heart
will take care of it,
with that right now.
Yeah.
And my kids have been great, and my mom, phenomenal. My sister-in-law Angie. I'm blessed with a good support system.
So Luke and Katie have probably tested your faith in other ways, right? Over the years.
Okay.
And you don't have to go into detail, but
I promised I would not say anything bad.
But you do have 2 other kids.
Yes, I'm not going to say anything. No funny, embarrassing stories, anything like that. But yeah, I do have 2 other great kids who have definitely tested my faith. I mean, God knows Luke's freshman year of high school was a journey for me. And then I would say, COVID was a journey with those 2. Luke home from college, those both in the house all the time. And their personalities are super different. Yeah. I mean, so that's fun. They're very close. Their relationship with Cameron it's hilarious because he's always just been their brother. So like they do things to annoy him because they can, and it's funny. But if anybody else did, they would be mad about it probably.
Sure.
But they're all 3 very close. I can't tell you probably how many railroad track rides those 2 plus Chelsea and Mallory, his cousins, have taken Cameron on, because that's one of his joys of his life is to get in a car and ride across the railroad tracks.
Just right across the road.
Oh yeah, roll the window down.
Everything.
Roll the window down. Hear the ka-kunk. Yeah. And he's happy. I mean, Emily too.
And he'd love it on the golf cart.
Yeah, oh yeah. We need a golf cart. Yeah,
I don't know if he'd love that or not.
Oh, I don't know. I think he would love it.
It is like an amusement park ride.
I mean, there you go. Yeah. So
it's like that wooden coaster at Holiday World.
And see, he used to love roller coasters, but then once he got his spinal fusion, he couldn't do that. That's a story for Luke and Katie. That's a time they were glad that their brother with special needs when we went to Disney World, because we got to go to all the fronts of all the rides because he had special needs, and it was like.
And he loved it.
Cameron loved it. Oh, Space Mountain loved it. I mean, he screamed "Holy sour cream" on the ride. Like that's what he screamed.
What's just to get back on the surgery real quick? But what's the best case scenario from the surgery?
Best case scenario is that his head will be upright now, rather than if you see him now, he walks like this a lot. Yeah, he always kind of has his elbow because he can't hold his head up. So even now he's in a cervical spinal brace because number one, we're training him because the doctor would like Cameron to be in a halo for 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. I'm not sure how well Cameron will tolerate a halo because cognitively we want to understand you can't.
He's going to want to
mess with these screws and this, and so.
And sleeping.
Yeah, I don't know if they will try it, and if it doesn't work, go in and take it off. I'm going to them decide that. But if that doesn't work, he has to wear like a full torso brace with the chin up thing for 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
So he is right now in training in this cervical brace. I forgot where I was going with that story with the brace.
That's okay.
But anyway, yeah. So he's tolerating it well, and I have. Oh, what's the best case scenario is that his head will be held up now. So therefore, his breathing will be better. His digestion will be better. His, just so many things that you don't realize you take for granted when your head is upright that your body systems need.
Sure.
And so the best case scenario then is that, like he's got like his reflexes on his fingers. I didn't even know they did this, but one of the tests they did on him was they just took their fingers, kind of snapped the end of his finger. Well, if you've got good nerve sending to your extremities, that will just pop back up.
Right.
Cameron stayed down.
Okay.
So it's obviously affecting him more than we even realize.
Right.
So I feel like once it's fixed, his dexterity will get better, his finger strength will get better. I just feel like his quality of life, period, I think will get better. Now, granted, he'll be like turning like robot-y because he won't have any movement of his neck.
But he can see his right and his left.
Yes, and he's not staring at the ground all the time. And so that's what I focus on now. Yeah. Like I was doing the bad thing of getting on the internet and reading things, which you should never do. And now I'm just focused on let's get it done.
You've had him 25 years.
25 years. and he does say mommy.
He does.
28 times a day.
We all should say mommy. Oh, maybe not 28 times.
Maybe not 28 times a day.
Yeah. When you think of teaching and the impact, do you understand the impact that you've had on your students? Have they brought it to you visibly and verbally?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I've had like sweet Katie Warner, commented on your thing that she became a teacher because of me. I had a really neat experience a few years ago at prom. I'd had a kid that had come to me in 3rd grade, and he was a troubled kid. None of the teachers could control him at his other school, and it was all. But he'd had a lot of trauma in his life, and I ignored all those things, and I was walking into prom, and this person tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and I look up at this Marine. I mean, he was literally a Marine. And he said, Mrs. Callison, do you remember me? And I was like, and I said his name, which I'm not going to say now. Okay. And he said, yeah, it's me. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm a Marine now. And, oh, thank you so much. And he hugged me. And just, I've had instances like that in my life that have happened that have made me see. But then I've had littler instances. Just, I have cards that I've saved that parents have sent me, or a text message that just says, thank you for being there for my kid today. Or just, and the kids, the beauty of the kids that are in high school that come and hug you, big high school boys that are supposed to be so that are like, oh, and they see you and they hug you. So that you've touched them and meant something in their life. And that's
we always, I say we always, maybe I'm unique, but I don't think so among the guys. We always had a crush on our 5th or 6th grade teacher, right? I mean, Mrs. Trout, she was Mrs. Keller at one time. And
yes.
I had crushes, okay. Anybody ever tell you later on in life that they had a crush on you?
Well, I don't think anybody ever told me they had a crush on me, but I will say Jackson Hembry.
Jackson,
I will say this, that he did tell me several years ago that he always remembered a blue flowered dress that I would wear to school. So it wasn't necessarily that he had a crush on me, but
he remembered.
But that he remembered that dress. And there are other things that kids will say to me, like Haley Mathias, like you were talking to Landon, like I had a dress that I wore that I taught when I taught 3rd grade, and then I moved over here to 5th grade, and like she would be like, I remember you wore that in 3rd grade, and I'm like, yeah, I did. I'm still wearing it.
That's amazing.
But they do. They remember like sayings that you said. Like I always have weird sayings, like I say like correctamundo, schmundo.
Yeah, I was going to say I hear that, but what are some of those? Correctamundo?
I mean, I do. I just have weird. I don't know. I'll say like, speak now or forever hold your Kleenex, and they'll say peace. Like, or if I'm passing out, your worksheet, peace. And then if you to get him to listen to me. Or when I teach, I'm always like, when we get the right answers, I'm always like, bada bing, and they'll always yell, bada boom.
Yeah.
And it's just things. And I'll see them,
Yeah.
older people now, and they'll bada bing me
Yeah.
as I'm in the grocery store. And
Well,
I'm like,
makes it fun. Did you ever have Mrs. Weiniger?
no,
No.
no, she was teaching here, but
Oh, was she? Okay.
yeah.
Miss Steiner, when I
Yes.
had her. Again, another young teacher that I probably had a crush on. Cool Your Jets. You know, I mean, that was a time when she was cool.
Yeah.
And you knew that she was not happy with Cool Your Jets. Or she might just say it to have fun.
Right.
But I remember that forever.
Yeah.
And other people do too that I've talked to. And because it's just unique, right? It's just not the,
it's your personality.
Yeah.
I think that when you choose to share your personality, then they choose to share their personalities back.
Yeah.
It doesn't become like robotic, you know.
Right.
They know when you're serious and it's time to teach, but you also know, just have some fun.
You've talked about the challenges today of teaching and the difference that it is today, maybe when you started, but obviously there are a lot of rewards being a teacher. What are some of those that you've seen that you feel particularly good about?
Oh, wow. Well, obviously when kids say they're going to be a teacher because they want to be like me, that's pretty intense. It's so hard because I'm still in it every day, and I still love it like I loved it all those years ago. I still love it when they write me a letter or they make me a picture at home at night and bring it to me at school the next day, because I know they were sitting at home thinking about me. That's an honor to me that they would do that, you know, and seeing them in public, I mean, and they get so excited and they're like, Mrs. Brookshire, and they're just like, you're at the volleyball game or whatever, and it's just like, and then they sit down all around you, and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, we've been in school all day long, and now I've got 6 of you sitting here with me, but then I stop and go, what a blessing.
Yeah.
What blessing that you've been with me all day, but you still want to come over here and sit with me at this game. And so I have to swallow any type of frustration or like I'm tired kind of a thing and just be in the moment.
They want to be with you.
Because they want to be with me.
Now, that's where things have changed. When I had Mrs. Hagerty in the 2nd grade, I liked her as a teacher, but if I saw her in a grocery store, I'm running the other way, right? And if she sees me, she's probably running the other way.
Yeah, no,
I never thought about those teachers, like my wife Lynn.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They love her.
Love her.
They'll go by our house.
I love her.
And say, that's where Mrs. Bateman lives. Hey.
Yeah.
I live here too.
Yeah.
And hug her, and Brittany as well.
Yes.
And just teachers in general today, and that's a big difference when some of you and I went to school. But,
speaking of
it's a good difference.
Brittany, that's another one of our funny stories. I taught Brittany when she was in 3rd grade.
Yeah, so Brittany Gibson.
Hey, Brittany.
Mrs. Gibson.
Mrs. Gibson.
Yeah.
And so last year when the year I turned 50, that would have been 2 years, because I'll be 52 in December. So the year I turned 50, the kids kept saying, well, how old are you going to be? And I'd say, I'll tell you on my birthday. I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you on my birthday. So before Christmas break, I told them, and I said, and I have to tell you something else. And they all were like, what? And I'm like, I taught Mrs. Gibson in 3rd grade. Like they're falling out of the chairs. Yeah. No way! I mean, they're losing their minds. And for me, like you talk about the rewards of teaching, seeing Brittany teach is a reward to me, because I read, when I taught 3rd grade, I always read the Shiloh trilogy, the Shiloh books. After lunch, every day, I would sit down and read. And I read that to her in 3rd grade. And she reads those books to her 3rd graders because that impacted her. And then they get to teach with her. I mean, wow. I mean, it was...
Brittany's my niece.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of her. But she's beautiful. Can you imagine the kids that have a crush on her?
Oh, my God. No, I can't even imagine. Oh, my gosh. No.
But those kids, what grade is that? Is that 3rd?
That's 3rd grade.
So they reacted like that because they already think Brittany's old.
Yeah.
And now you taught her.
Actually, no, they think I'm young. Like when I told them how
That's
old
why
I
they
was.
couldn't believe.
Yeah, like so. My God, if they thought I was 30, I don't know what they thought Brittany was.
Yeah.
I mean, she will like forever be young, because when you teach, it keeps you young, and the kids don't. Even my 5th graders didn't realize how old I was. even though they knew Cam was his age, they didn't. I mean, my third graders did say last year, you still get up off the floor really well. You know, oh, wow, okay. Somebody bring some Ensure for me tomorrow. Thank you. You know, but I just think it's been ongoing. I think it'll be easier for me to reflect on some of those questions when I'm out of it, because right now I'm still in it, and I'm sitting here talking to you, and as I look around this classroom, I see faces, even though nobody's in here, because...
Oh, we should have had him here.
Oh, my gosh.
We should have had him here.
We don't need question and answer sessions.
No,
oh, Lord. They'll be talking about my singing.
Ms. Brookshire? Any questions?
Yeah. If they have to talk about my singing or my drawing, I'm in big trouble.
Yeah.
So
your dad is hunting?
Hunting. Well, he got his elk.
He got his elk.
Got his elk.
Where did he go?
Wyoming with Gary Horowitz.
He's above 70.
72.
72. And he's been doing this for how long?
His whole life.
And what does he do with this elk?
Well, my parents eat it. My mom and dad eat bison, elk, whatever it is. Yeah. It's very healthy for you, though. Not a lot of fat, and they are very. But now he's going on another hunt. But if you're possibly gonna be interviewing him, I don't want to spoil his things.
Okay.
So.
All right.
But yes, he is a hunter, and he has lots of things that he has. But I think that is his stress release. I mean, for so many years, it's so nice to be out there. There's no phone, there's no pager, there's no anything. It's just God's country, and you could just actually escape from everything.
And of course, your dad, the doctor, is very well loved in the community. But your mom, come on. I mean, it's like I was saying, hey, I'm here too. I'd imagine that your mom is such a great person, and how can you not love her?
I don't know what I would have. Yeah, I mean, my dad, on the line of that.
And your mom looks so young, by the way.
Yes, my dad used to joke, though, he would do Tar Wars here, and here he was, Dr. Sutton, man of the community, and he would go in there, and no one would be listening to him, and then he would say, "I'm Mrs. Callison's dad," and he would be like, "Oh," and he's like, "Here, I am a doctor, but I for a while became just."
I probably brought your mom into this world.
Yeah, exactly. But no, my mom is just like I don't even know what to say. I can't fathom raising Cameron without her. I mean, she has been a rock through all of it. I mean, even when they told us Cameron wasn't going to make it, and I know that her own faith was tested at that time, because she was going to be a nun. I mean, my mom's faith is strong. I mean, the woman was like, she was one step away from being a nun. So when you talk about somebody that lives their life through faith, she is that person. And she just continues to love on all of us, but Cameron, she's super close to him. She keeps him for me, and she takes him to the First Chance Center in Paoli so he can spend the day with his peers and have fun, and she's just...
I bet he adores her too.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes, Graham is everything. Graham can do no wrong. Yes, he adores her.
What else you want to talk about? What didn't I ask? What didn't you get out there that you thought you might want to say, or anything you want to bring up?
Mostly the prayers for Cameron. I really, really, I keep things to myself, I think, sometimes, because in life, sometimes you don't want to feel vulnerable, I guess. But
you should know by now this community can help you.
I know that.
And will help you.
And watching with Landon, how beautiful that was, and I love Landon, and
you had him?
Yeah, I loved teaching him. I taught Haley too, but I know that you have to ask, and he needs those prayers, and I just pray, for him to not be in a lot of pain, and that he can understand, and so that would be on my Cameron front, what I would want out there that I maybe didn't say enough. And then on the other front, I just want people to understand the pressure that young teachers are under. I mean, I've been here 27 years, so I've dealt with a lot of different situations. I've had a lot of kids with a lot of needs that I've, been blessed enough to help them, get through. But young teachers are young teachers, and I was a young teacher once, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I feel like sometimes they're over-criticized. We all make mistakes, but if a young teacher makes a mistake with social media nowadays, it's blown up, and I feel like people need to understand that if we want good teachers, we got to get out there and we got to get the pay raise, because my own daughter is going to college and racking up debt and is going to come out and make $40,000 a year, and it's just
Not
that's
feasible.
not even that doesn't even
Right.
go with the cost of living
Right.
increase. I mean, and parents and grandparents are so phenomenal nowadays, though. I got to give a shout out about that, about the Amazon wish list. You know about that?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I've
with
done that.
Lynn, I mean,
Oh, we've done that, sure.
that has been,
With Brittany, absolutely.
yes, that has been a
Mhm.
blessing
Yeah.
for us, because those were things we used
Yeah.
to buy out of our own
Yeah,
pockets.
I know. So the Amazon wish list, teachers actually put out there what the classroom needs are, and whoever wants to help out helps out. And that's where the community, and some of you have done that. But yeah, that's you're right. And I remember Brittany going out and buying things on her own. You
Yes.
mean the school doesn't provide that?
No, they
Yeah,
don't. They
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
And you're buying it on your own. And
Yeah.
I mean, just last week, I sent a message out to parents that we needed Play-Doh, because I noticed my fifth graders were kind of stressed. As you can see in the desks, there's some Play-Doh.
Yeah.
And my third graders used to love it. It was a good stress release for them in between things. Next thing I know, I've got Play-Doh for the entire fifth grade, and I've even got some more over there for when it starts to dry
Yeah.
out. So thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't hear us say thank you enough, for what you do for us and the kids, and supporting us, because times have been tough over the last few years.
Absolutely.
And just your little messages and your things that you do, that lifts us up, and it helps us pour love into your kids. So
Yeah.
keep it up.
Yeah. Well, Angie Brookshire, you'll never realize the inspiration that you are. You won't.
Well, thank you.
And that just is the way it is.
Well, thank you.
That's
I love what I do.
Yeah, and that's why she's an inspiration to people. But that's this episode of Getting to Know Your Indiana Neighbor, Angie Brookshire. Thank you so much for watching.